We're going to start in Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1, verse 17, and look at Jesus' invitation. That's the title of my sermon today, Jesus' invitation. And it's very important when you're reading Jesus' words to make sure you're hearing them fresh. So we're just going to read this one verse and begin there. And Jesus said to them, the people he was calling, he says, "Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men." Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men. Again, when we read Jesus, when we read the Gospels, we need to ensure we're reading them fresh, that we see when Jesus is speaking, how does that connect to us? So to be able to do that, we need to zoom out a little bit and observe our cultural context for a minute. Each of us live in a cultural context, regardless of when you live or where you live in a cultural context. And that context, when you are not attentive, when you live passively, you sort of have a default setting or like a cruise control, where you just float along with whatever the common and popular values and priorities and mores of that culture exhibits. And so when you are not attentive, you will just drift along passively with wherever culture is going. Now, I like to bring connection to maybe what culture is similar, what culture is to us is similar to what water is to a fish. Okay, you're in it, but you don't know you're in it. Maybe when there's some impurities, you kind of sense something is wrong, but you're not entirely sure what is wrong. And so when you are not attentive, when you're not paying attention, when you're not asking questions like, what is the water like? What is culture like? You will just simply drift along with wherever culture is going. So our culture, what is that culture like? And as a pastor, I try to spend a lot of time really thinking through what is going on in our culture, in our context, and how do we connect the words, the life of Jesus to that context. And maybe to oversimplify, this might be a little oversimplification, but I want to simplify it enough for us to see where we're at, what the water is that we're swimming in, and how to move from passively floating along to intentionally living the life of Jesus. And I'll basically liken it to like this. We have two specific idols in culture: success and security. Now, success, that's just defined by whatever, current cultural standards are. And in general, our culture looks at success as the acquisition of wealth or fame or power, or any and all the above. And so we make this idol of success, and we say, this is culture speaking, we say, this is what life is like. This is what purpose in life is like. This is where you need to angle your life or direct your life towards, is the acquisition of wealth or fame or power or any combination of those. And we make an idol of that success. Or, since maybe we're not strong enough or smart enough or talented enough to be wealthy, successful, or powerful, at least we can have security. Yeah. Whether that be financial security, or relational security, or maybe political security. Security becomes an idol that culturally speaking, we lift up and say, this is what life is really for. This is what life is really about. If you can't acquire success, at least do everything you can to acquire security. Now, let me just at the onset say, there's nothing inherently wrong with success or security. Okay? You hear me say that? There's nothing inherently wrong. Now, some definitions of success can be wrong, but inherently in what success is, there's nothing inherently wrong. What's wrong is when they're idols. And we have made idols of these. And what I mean when I say idols is when we are just sort of floating along or passively floating along, you got to look at the way things are structured to secure ourselves around these idols. I mean, the television shows and movies that we binge watch on Netflix and Hulu, they're trying to say this is what you need to do. If you're not entirely sure you're successful, at least let me divert your attention away from the things that you're not successful in and get focused in somebody else's life. Or, the way social media is set up, that maybe we don't have success, or, maybe we idolize other people that have those things, but at least let's have security. And so we try to get some kind of relational security, or maybe a community of sorts, through social media. I want to be approved. I want to be accepted. I was reading something about social media, and, in generations past, you would write all your thoughts down in a diary, and you would get offended if somebody read it. Now, you put all your thoughts on social media, and you get offended if people don't read it. But what are we trying to? We're trying to get some kind of sense of security or some kind of approval in life. And so, culturally speaking, in general, we've become pretty proficient of venting all of our frustrations publicly, voicing all of our opinions and trying to shove them down anybody that would listen, whether they ask for them or not. We live in a climate that's very angry with our politics, polarized, and all the different systems in our world are basically sweeping those up over and over and over. And if you're just drifting along, that's what you're getting into. That's the way we're living our life. We're living our lives very emotionally charged, emotionally driven, very reactive, not very reflective. We live chaotic and we live busy. If you live passively, if you are not attentive, that's the kind of life you will be living. Very emotionally charged, very reactive to anything that could possibly offend you, not very reflective. You're just sort of living day to day to day to day, very chaotic and very busy. And we wonder why we have shallow and superficial lives. So, I'm going to dig it a little deeper, depress you a little bit more, and then we'll get to what Jesus has to say. But I want you to be aware, because again, we have a tendency to not be aware. Like fish in water, we just sort of float along with culture, and we don't understand the water that we are swimming in. And this is generally it with these idols of success and security. And when we live that way when we live that way day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, we live simply shallow and even immature. And I don't just mean petty, shallow in a petty sense, but just not very deep. Richard Foster begins his book. Originally, the first edition was in 1978. He said these words in 1978. The most recent edition was 1998. And he begins the first chapter of his book, The Celebration of Discipline, like this. Superficiality is the curse of our age. The doctrine of instant satisfaction is a primary spiritual problem. The desperate need today is not for a greater number of intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people. See, if we worship the idols of success and security, we look at that and go, well, you're wrong. But if you think when we're living these shallow lives, these superficial lives where everything is about instant satisfaction and everything is about satisfying my emotional need in the moment, we're living superficial lives. And what he's saying is that this world idolizes intelligent people and gifted people, and intelligent people and gifted people may have value. Maybe, I don't know how many of us are considered in that group, but they might have value. But listen, when we continue to uphold and idolize people who are just exclusively those things, that's what got us into the cultural climate we're in right now. And he's saying the desperate need today is not to put more idols up of those kinds, but for people with character, people with depth, people that actually are aware and attentive to what's going on in our world and what God is doing in our world. And see, the church, sadly, in general, in America, has not really offered much of an alternative. Honestly, the church, specifically in America, and I can only speak in that context. I'm not from another country. I live in this country, and I pastor in this country. But the church in general in America generally suffers from the same idols. Success and security. But instead, what we do is we sort of varnish those idols with a Jesus veneer. And we say, if you accept Jesus or believe in Jesus, then you will be successful. And you will have all this stuff. You will be popular and people will love you and you will have all this stuff. And so we just take the same idol and put a Jesus veneer on it, making Jesus a means to an end. And like I said, success and security maybe not inherently is the problem, but idolizing them is the problem, and it's certainly a problem. It is vicious idolatry to make Jesus a means to that end. That's a problem. And it's a problem that the church suffers from. We suffer from, generally speaking, the same idols of success and security. And so we've got as a people, we've got to hear Jesus' words fresh. We have to see Jesus in a way that maybe we haven't seen, or maybe the cultural climate is not paying attention to. Dallas Willard begins his book on the spirit of the disciplines. He makes this comment: Christianity can only succeed as a guide for current humanity if it takes the need for human transformation as seriously as do modern revolutionary movements. If Christianity is to be a viable leader in culture, if Christianity is to actually have a voice in today's world, what he's saying is that it has to take human transformation just as serious as every other revolutionary movement. Anyone that's serious about changing something, about changing systems, about changing culture, that seriousness, if the church is to be a viable solution to a world gone wrong, if the church is supposed to be a vessel of Jesus in our day and age and truly have an answer, not just use cliches about Jesus being the answer, but actually being the answer to a world gone wrong, we have to take serious human transformation. And what's the problem with that is that culturally speaking, we are better at blaming others. We are not good at taking responsibility. We are much better at viciously attacking our opponents. We are much better at accusing other groups of people, other entities, other types of people, them. We're better at blaming them than taking responsibility for our own self, for our own problems, for our own issues. And I don't mean taking responsibility in your own self. I mean understanding what Jesus has to say to you, not just what he has to say to them. Okay, well, we got to take it serious. Well, when we take that serious, we have to understand what are the questions that are being asked in our culture, and what should we be asking. And culturally, that vein, that flow of culture, it's asking questions like, well, what do I need to do to get success or wealth or security? Or what must I accomplish to attain success or security or things like that? When the question we need to be asking is not, what do I need to do, but who am I becoming? Who is the person I am becoming? That's the issue Jesus is addressing. That's the problem Jesus is addressing. He's not just addressing systems, he's addressing what is behind every system, and that is human beings. Amen. And human beings have a problem. We're messed up. We're broken and distorted by sin. And so his call is to follow me, and I will make you become. Jesus is more interested in taking you on a journey of becoming someone than taking you on a journey to get you somewhere or get you something. And this is why we have to be very cautious and very attentive to not make Jesus a means to an end. That when he says, follow me, when he extends that invitation to you, he has extended it to you before, and he's extending it to you today. Follow me, and that journey that he's on, you got to look at Jesus. He's always on the move. Always. Just read the book of Mark. Mark was in a hurry. Mark says Jesus was always going somewhere quickly. And straightway he went this way, and immediately he went that way, and then he did this, and then he did that. I mean, the first 2 chapters of Mark alone should get you tired and out of breath. But what is that journey that He's calling you to? The journey of transformation. He is taking you on a journey to transform you into the same kind of person He is. He's not taking you on a journey to get something, though on the way of transformation you do acquire some things. He's not trying to get you somewhere, though on the journey of transformation you do get somewhere. The real purpose, what He's really doing, is helping you to become someone. Because, listen, before you can decide what you're going to do, you must first determine who you are going to be. Because what you do will come out of who you are. That's why most behavior modification programs fail. Because it's working from the outside in, thinking that your problem is your behavior. That's why religion, and when you say religion, there's many definitions of religion. I mean religion as the system of oppression that's trying to change what you do so that you become more acceptable to God. That's religion. The problem with that is it's addressing the wrong problem. It's addressing what it thinks is the problem, and that's your bad behavior. And that's not your problem, because what you do comes from who you are. And actually, more accurately, who you are becoming. There is a sense that you already are certain things. 1 John chapter 3, verse 1 says, "What manner of love is this, that we should be called the children of God, and so we are." But immediately says, "And what we will be has not yet appeared." So there is this sense that we are certain things, but we are also in the process of becoming. So the question is, who are you becoming? That's the key question tonight we're going to ask. Who are we becoming? Who are you becoming? Because listen, everyone becomes someone. Just, if you're not with me, I'll drag you along. We'll get there. Everyone becomes someone. Okay? Not everybody becomes that person intentionally. Most people become that person accidentally, unintentionally. See, that's the dirty little secret of change. Pastor Duane didn't tell you that. It's a dirty little secret about change. Listen, you are always changing. Always. Always changing. You're not always aware of that change. You might not like the change. You might dread it. You might hate change. You might love change. You might be intentional about it. You might be unintentional about it. But listen, you are always changing. Okay? Are you the exact same person you were 5 years ago? Just think about this before you just have a reaction. Are you the exact same person? No, you're not the exact same person. Of course, you still have the same DNA, but I mean, you are not. You think a little bit different. You have changed a little bit. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So then listen. Then a year from now, you're not going to be the exact same person. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're not going to be the exact same person. So really the question is not, are you becoming someone? The question is, who are you becoming? And are you becoming that person intentionally? Or are you passively floating along in the waters of culture, idolizing success and security? Listen, everything in your life is influencing the person you're becoming. Everything that is ingested by your 5 physical senses is affecting the person you're becoming. Every decision you make, every word you speak, every conversation you have, every person you meet, everything is affecting you at some level, even if it's just a tiny, tiny little bit. Everything that happens to you, and maybe more specifically, your response to everything that happens to you, is affecting you at a fundamental level. Every belief, every opinion, every attitude you maintain is influencing the person you are becoming. It might be ever so slight, but it is influencing you. You can look at it from a traumatic sense. Maybe there was a injury That injury has affected how you see the world. Maybe it was a death in your family. That has affected how you see the world. Or maybe just minutely, everything that's happening to you, from spilling your coffee to 5 o'clock traffic to your kid talking back to you, is affecting you. It's adjusting, it's changing you. It's doing something to you to contribute to the person you are becoming. That's why Solomon in his wisdom said in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Everything that is in abundance in your heart is determining the quality of life that you experience and the kind of person you're becoming. Okay? Everything that's going on is constantly going into you, and it's going into your heart. And whatever is in abundance is affecting the quality of life you're experiencing and the kind of person you're becoming. Jesus says in Luke chapter 6, verse 45, he said, the good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good. And the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. Or you could say, out of the abundance of his heart, his life bears fruit. That's the context he's talking about, a good tree and a bad tree. A good tree bearing good fruit and a bad tree bearing bad fruit. So you in your life, you are like a tree planted by rivers of living water. You will bear fruit. The fruit you bear will be because something is in your heart in abundance. And it's not just your actions or your words, it's the quality of life you're experiencing, the kind of life, and the person you're becoming. Because listen, who you are determines what you do. And so all these things are affecting the person you're becoming. So you need to ask yourself the question, what am I allowing in abundance? What am I allowing in my heart in abundance? Am I allowing in abundance binge watching that TV show on Netflix? There might not be anything inherently wrong in that show or that movie, but is it getting in abundance? Because whatever is in your heart in abundance is going to come out of your mouth, is going to come out of your actions. All of your activity on social media, because as I look, I can see a lot of you guys are on social media a lot. Okay. 24-hour news networks. What's getting inside of you in abundance? We wonder why we're so angry. See, because that's what's making us so reactive, is we're not attentive. We're not paying attention. We're not intentional about what's coming into us in abundance. So that when something happens, we just react to it. And we don't realize that that reaction was not necessarily preordained before the foundations of the earth. That reaction was because you have allowed something into your heart in abundance. So you have to keep right in front of you. What am I allowing in my heart in abundance? Because, you're going to see things you're not supposed to see, and you're going to accidentally see them, or you're going to hear things you didn't intend to hear. All that kind of things just happen like that. But are you allowing it in abundance? Because whatever is in abundance will spew out of your life. Your life will be a reflection of whatever is in your heart in abundance. So, am I unintentional, passive about the inputs into my life? Or am I intentionally focusing on Jesus and allowing His words, His life, His love to get in abundance? Because the only way you will react to something that happens in your life in a Christ-like manner is if Christ is in abundance in you. If you've focused on Jesus. The only way you bear Christ-like fruit is if you abide in Jesus. So, are we going to continue to be unintentional and just passively float along, scrolling through our news feed, watching whatever we want to watch, doing whatever we want to do, and just floating along, fish in water, and start to mirror the values and the priorities of the culture we are immersed in, which is idolizing success and security? Or are we going to focus on Jesus and our lives manifest the life of Jesus? Well, I can't answer that for you. You have to answer it. But this is what Paul's cry was. This is what his desire, what his apostolic passion to the church in Galatia was this. Look at this. My little children, for whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth, until Christ is formed in you. Paul's, his apostolic passion for this church in Galatia, that he's laboring like a pregnant mother over this fledgling congregation that's struggling with dead religion. Read the first 3 chapters of Galatians. He says, "Oh, you foolish Galatians." Some translation says, "Oh, you stupid Galatians." I like that translation. So he's like a pregnant mother trying to give birth to a congregation, a community of Christ followers, to look like what kind of children that he's laboring over, until Christ is formed in you. Now they've been born again. They've been Spirit-filled. But obviously there's a disconnect between who they are deep in their spirit, the Christ that they've been born again into, being connected with one spirit with the Lord, and the way that they're living out their life, the persons that they have become. And what he's saying is, what I'm laboring is that the Christ in you come out of you, which means that Christ that's in you has to overtake everything in your heart. He has to be formed in you. We call this spiritual formation or spiritual transformation. It's really what we mean when we use the word discipleship. But often when we use the word discipleship, we mean educate your head. Accidentally, we have made discipleship a series of things you have to learn, when that's not really what discipleship is. Discipleship is for Christ to overtake the very fabric of the center of your being. Your very will, that Christ be shaped and formed into your will, into your emotional reactions, where the ultimate goal, the telos, the end result, the destiny of believers is actually for you to reflect and mirror the life and the love of Christ in every situation, in every circumstance, no matter what happens. That's the ultimate goal. That is what Paul says in Romans is the ultimate destiny of anyone who believes in Jesus. He's saying, listen, this destiny is calling to each of us. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. God predestined his people to look like Jesus. And so he put the seed of Jesus deep in their spirit, and now he calls to discipleship and say, listen, now Jesus is to overtake, now be in abundance in your heart, and out of the abundance of your heart, you will reflect him out in your life. That's the calling of every believer. But often, we hear Jesus' words, and we just think, oh, if I accept him, then I'm good to go, right? If I believe in him, then I'm good to go, right? And I'd say, well, that's a first step. That's a good start. Accepting what Jesus has done, believing on him, absolutely. Now, you need to follow him. And that's his invitation, to follow him. And following him means that he, as a shepherd, in every single situation, is communicating his life and his love so that that love, that life is in abundance in your heart so that when anything happens, the natural response is for Christ-like love. Christ, that's got to be the cry of the church again. That Christ be formed in us. That Christ's life, his love, overtake every single fragment of our life, beginning at the very center, because from the heart, the rest of our life is flowing out of that heart. That's Paul's cry. That should be our cry again. That's what we labor, pastors and leaders, not just like people on staff, but for each other, that we labor day in and day out for Christ to be formed in us, not for us to just learn what Jesus did. That's good, that's helpful. But to actually become the kind of person Jesus was. That's what he's calling us into. That's the life he calls us into. And that's what Paul says is the destiny. That's what God planned for you. Now, you can willfully choose to go a different direction. You can willfully choose to float along passively and unintentionally in a culture that's idolizing success and insecurity. You're free to do that. But that's not God's best for you. His best for you is for Christ to overtake everything in your life. For your life to accurately and properly and even instantaneously reflect the life and love of Jesus. I mean, can you imagine if anything, no matter what it was, anything happened to you, your natural reaction was to be like Jesus? Oh, you're already there. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, man. Just go over your life last week with a fine-tooth comb and think about all the ways that you have not properly reflected the life and love of Jesus. It's a little embarrassing, to be honest. But yet, that's his heart. What do you think he means when he says he's the good shepherd? That David's prayer, the Lord is my shepherd. And when you are my shepherd, I'm content. I'm happy. I'm not striving for success or security. If I've got you, I'm happy. This is Psalm 73. It says that you are the strength of my heart. You are my portion forever. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there's nothing on earth I desire beside you. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I'm content. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Not, yellow level security in the airport or orange level security. I don't know what they're trying to tell you when they're continuing to upgrade the colors. They're basically saying, hey, the color has been upgraded, you're to be more afraid. You haven't flown in the airport lately? Okay. Thank you, Homeland Security. They're teaching you how to be afraid. Well, see, listen, post 9/11 world, think about the way the culture is going. They're teaching you how to be afraid. So how do we manifest Christ-like love and Christ-like life in a post 9/11 world full of terror and fear? Well, that's the call of Jesus. That's his invitation. In that context, follow me and I will make you to become. I'll make you into the kind of person I am. The great I am. I mean, to put a finer point on it. So this really is what Pastor was teaching in 2 Corinthians 3:18. And it says, we all with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. So, let me ask it from another angle. What environments are you subjecting yourself to that are having the impact or impacting the kind of person you're becoming? What kind of environments are you consistently and frequently exposing yourself to that is influencing the kind of person you're becoming? Think about your different environments. Your family environment, your work environment, your recreation environment, your relationships, your entertainment, your news, all the different environments you engage in. Which environments are having the greatest impact on the kind of person you're becoming? Okay? Which environments are the ones that you're engaging in that enable you to behold the glory of Jesus? Because if you're not engaging in environments that are facilitating and encouraging beholding the glory of the Lord in the face of Jesus, then you are being conformed or transformed into another image. So which environments are you engaging in frequently, consistently, intentionally, that are enabling you to behold the glory of the Lord in the face of Jesus? Because it's those environments, it's that attentiveness, it's that attention, beholding the glory of Jesus, that is transforming you into the kind of person Jesus is. Slowly but surely, from one degree of glory to another. Or do we just passively float along in whatever environments we just so happen to be in and behold all other sorts of images? Social media, Netflix, news, talk radio, recreation, all those environments. All those environments, you're beholding something. Generally speaking, you're beholding whatever culture is putting in front of you to behold. And whatever you're beholding is getting in you in abundance. And whatever's getting in you in abundance is the way your life is coming out. So if you are unhappy with what's coming out of your life, you need to check what inputs you are engaging in. Whatever you are allowing in abundance is affecting the kind of quality of life you're experiencing and the kind of person you're becoming. So who are you becoming? Are you becoming more like Jesus? The only way that is possible is if you are intentionally and consistently beholding the glory of the Lord in the face of Jesus. That's what transforms you into that image. Amen. So you and I should probably be a little more attentive to what we are beholding. Let's maybe just take family for a second. The environment of family. You're going to spend a lot of your life with your family, in your family, with your spouse. Are you beholding what's wrong with your spouse, or beholding what television shows tell you the kind of marriages you're supposed to be experiencing? Because you're being transformed into that image. If that's what you're beholding, that's what you're becoming like. That's the kind of person you're becoming. You're becoming the kind of person that you are engaged in beholding in the most. So what is it? And this is political season, so I know you're watching more news. I know you're listening to more talk radio. Let me just challenge you. Let me challenge you. The same amount of time you watch 24-hour news networks and listen to talk radio, spend in prayer. Equal 30 minutes of news, 30 minutes of prayer. An hour of talk radio, an hour of prayer. If you are spending more than 4 hours in watching 24-hour news or listening to talk radio, you probably should join a monastery between now and an election. Whatever image you're beholding is the kind of person you're becoming. So if you're beholding angry politics, guess what you're going to be? Angry. All the time. And if you idolize security, we're just wringing our hands hoping that our candidate wins. But listen, I encourage you to vote. You should vote your convictions. You should vote because of your faith. We have that wonderful and important opportunity to engage in our civil duty. But listen, are you beholding and trusting a political candidate to give you something like security, which is an idol, or are you beholding Jesus, and out of beholding Jesus, allowing your vote to be engaged however Jesus is leading you? So who are you becoming? And what environments are you engaged in that are encouraging you to either behold the glory of the Lord in the face of Jesus or behold another image? Well, next week, Pastor Duane is going to begin a series on something called the Ecosystem of Maturity. And we as a church have been working on this for a very long time. Because we've been asking that question. What is the church's role in spiritual formation? Because you have a personal responsibility. You have a personal responsibility to behold the glory of the Lord. You have a personal responsibility to engage in environments that are encouraging you to behold the glory of the Lord revealed in the face of Jesus. So what is the church's role in spiritual formation? It's to create environments that are conducive for you beholding the glory of the Lord in the face of Jesus. Amen. Because if the church can create those environments and you engage in those environments, guess what? You will mature into Christ-likeness. So, we've worked on this a long time, and we encourage you, be here next week. Invite someone to hear this is what we do to lead you, to honestly be a co-learner, be a co-disciple. We don't, as a church, we don't come from a position of experts that are showing everybody else how to be like Jesus. We're a co-disciple. We're just saying, basically, Jesus says, follow me. We say, come with me. Jesus is saying, follow me. We say, okay, now come with me. And when we engage in those environments, and Pastor Duane will talk about each of those environments next week, and be attentive to it, listen to it, because listen, you are becoming someone. So who is it that you're becoming? And is the person you're becoming more Christ-like? Or does it look a whole lot like cultural values? Does it look a lot like cultural priorities? Does it look a whole lot like the idolatry of culture in success and security? Or does it look like Jesus? Well, we're going to continue to follow Him. And He does the work. We behold the glory. We follow Him. He does the work. I will make you become. So, change, you're changing. You don't have an option. It's happening, whether you like it or not. The question is, what are you changing into? And is that more like Jesus? The only way that happens is if you behold the glory. And the only way you behold the glory is if you continue to intentionally put yourself in environments that allow you, encourage you, facilitate you seeing the glory of the Lord in the face of Jesus. So Jesus' invitation is open to you today, right now. You say, well, I accepted Him way back when. Well, good. Are you following Him today? Are you answering that call today? Follow me and I will make you become. Who are you becoming? And is that person more Christ-like? Amen? Amen. Amen. Father, we love you. And that love is simply a response to the love we've encountered already. Jesus' love that's been manifested to us. And so, Jesus, we hear your invitation, and we say, yes, we'll follow you. And we're going to trust you to make us into the kind of person you desire us to become, a person who looks just like you. Holy Spirit, we invite you to do the work. So we come boldly to the throne of grace to receive mercy and to find grace to help in our time of need. We thank you for that grace that transforms us from one degree of glory to another. We repent. We say, Lord, have mercy. We've been passive. We've been unintentional. We've been beholding other images. And it's gotten in abundance in our hearts. So we repent and we turn to you. And we thank you that you have the power to transform us. You have the power to soften our heart, to put your very Spirit in abundance in our heart. So we thank you for that. We praise you for that. We're so thankful and we're so excited to live in this day and age that we get to be a part of what Jesus is doing in His world. In each of our communities, in each of our contexts, we follow Jesus and He makes us to become a whole lot like Him. And He, in us, is bringing your kingdom into our world and your will being done. So we surrender to your will, Jesus. We say, your kingdom come, your will be done, first in us, as it already is accomplished in the heavens. And may that life, may that kingdom, and may your will be manifested through us into a dark and hurting and broken world. We thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen.